Hello, Matt Wilson here on a Wednesday after school, done teaching. I haven't done one of these videos on a weekday in a while, so before October ends, I want to do my third, I guess, prog band after Tull and Floyd. Yes, I'm only going to examine the career of Yes, though, from 69 to 83. The 90125 album, and then I might show some select stuff after that. But from 69 to 83, they were fairly consistent, more hit than miss in my estimation. There are a wealth of solo albums. I do not have everything. I mean, just to have all the Rick Wakeman albums would be an ordeal in that period. So I'm just, I pulled out what I own or what I thought you might be interested in. And I don't know, this might be one of the more lengthy videos. I'll try to condense it down. So let's begin. Okay, so yes, 1969. This is the first album. It had a different cover in America. Oh, yeah, there you go. But this little basic cartoon, Yes, is what was released in the UK. It's a decent album. It's never quite grabbed me the way it does some people. I gotta be honest, my favorite thing on here is the Birds cover of I See You. I like what they did with that arrangement. I'm not gonna say it's better than the Birds, better than the Crosby song, but it's pretty damn impressive. By the way, tune in Saturday. I'm gonna do a Birds video. So a pretty good debut, certainly better than Genesis's first album the same year, but less than enthralling to me. This is the Electra Rhino CD remastered, bonus tracks. It's good. We'll get you where you want to go. If you want to have Yes's first album, pick it up. I have much the same thing to say about Time and a Word. It's also pretty good. They're messing around with an orchestra here on some of the tracks. They wouldn't do that again. Oh, you know what, guys? It's not in the context of this video, but since I'm bringing it up, and that way I can kind of put it away. Magnification. This is from, I don't remember, 2001, 2000, something like that. Perhaps they utilize the orchestra better on this album. This is a DVD. But I want to say Time and a Word is a better album than Magnification. All right? It's not something that Yes has done a lot, this symphonic thing, but this is the first time that they did it. Should I mention the songs? No Opportunity Necessary. No, that's a, oh God, what was his name? Richie Havens number. Every Day is Buffalo Springfield. Track Then is all right. And you get a bunch of bonus tracks. Did I show you this already? I think it's, I can't really tell you, no better or worse quality-wise than the first album, Yes. Okay, things get great now. 1971, the Yes album. This is a masterpiece. This is a 5-star classic album. They're fully realizing, their destiny as prog band numero uno. Rick Wakeman's not on board yet. Tony Kaye is still here, but you can see Steve Howe. He's there. So right away, the game is elevated. These are all great songs. Yours Is No Disgrace. The Clap is a Steve number. The big epic length Starship Trooper. I've Seen All Good People, which the radio played to death when I was a kid. Adventure I like. Perpetual Change is another. I mean, yeah. That is fantastic. Here is the Steven Wilson. This is the old one. This is just the, it's the Blu-ray, right? And you get the different mixes, 5.1. But he's gone back now, and he's going back and doing these albums in Atmos. So if you got an Atmos setup, which I do not, pick them up because they're highly rated. But this will do me just fine. This is my preferred way of listening to it. You know, it's fun to just blast this out of multiple speakers and as loud as the neighbors can handle it. The Yes album doesn't get any better. Fragile, this is an old Atlantic Gold CD of Fragile. This also came out in 71, didn't come out till 72 in the States. This was the first Yes album I ever heard. I got it in high school, which was until the early 80s. So much of what much of what I'm showing to you in this video, I experienced all secondhand. But that's true for most of the videos I do, all right? This is my favorite album of theirs. Roundabout, I can't tell you how much I love that song. It's almost, to me, the ultimate prog song. I said that to another one of my prog living friends, and he goes, it's not long enough. You know, there's a certain idea amongst a lot of us proggers that, like, you know, the full extension of a prog track has to be, you know, a whole LP side, like Thick as a Brick Part 1, you know, or Echoes by Pink Floyd, or, you know, whatever. But anyways, Roundabout was perfect. It's the first prog song I can probably remember hearing on the radio growing up. Cans and Brahms, the Rick Wakeman number there, you see it, number 2. He's on board now. He wanted something from, I think the first track, which I'll get to in a second, from his solo album, Six Wives of Henry VIII. He was under contract, that music, for another label. He had to use something else that he didn't write. So Cans and Brahms, or Cons and Brahms, if you have an accent. So if you're putting down that track, it wasn't supposed to be here. We have Heaven, beautiful. South Side of Sky, kicks ass, nice long track. 5% for Nothing, that's Bruford's number, right? They all have solo tracks on this album. Long Distance Runaround, Going Right Into the Fish, was played all the time on the radio growing up, just like Roundabout was. And Mood for a Day is Steve Howe's number, and then Heart of the Sunrise. This is a class. It's another 5-star album, folks. And there's the Steven Wilson mix again. You know, the 5.1 mix. Again, he does an Atmos mix, which, get that if you've got the means to play it. My preferred way of listening. Okay, these solo albums, I tried to do something different today, and I'm intermixing them with the band's discography. So, Flash is, this is a Peter Banks solo LP. Peter Banks was the first guitar player for Yes, a good player, before Steve Howe. Not on the level of Steve Howe, but how many people are, you know? This is a good, very Yes-sounding record. Again, had he not left, I think Yes could have utilized some of this material, you know? I do like it. They made another album, Flash, but I don't have it, and indeed have never heard it. I do recommend this, though, and it is Yes-like. All right? So I want to say that's 72. Could be wrong. Okay. I see I only brought out 2 versions of Close to the Edge. This is a Steve Hoffman disc. Close to the Edge, folks, I mean, I don't know how much I can praise. You can't overpraise this record. It's only got three tracks. Close to the Edge, And You and I, and Siberian Khatru. All classic. You didn't hear this on the radio growing up because the tracks were too long, but you know what? Siberian Khatru I may have even heard that once or twice, but not enough. That would have been a great song to hear. It's kind of like Pink Floyd's Animals, you know, with the songs were just too long. But many people believe this is not only the best prog album of 1972, not only Yes's best album, some people believe this is the best prog album ever made. Now, I don't really know, what to say about that. I mean, that's strictly subjective, right? But I'm just saying that's the regard that this album is held in. Again, one more time, not one more time. This is the Steven Wilson 5.1 mix. If you're going to hear it, that's the way to do it. Unless you got the Atmos mix, because he's got that one too. All right? Just couldn't be any better. And while I'm leaving this behind, that trio of records, the Yes album, Fragile, Close to the Edge, is as good or better than any 3 consecutively released prog albums by any other progressive rock band that I know, have heard. So that, to the point that when people have asked me in the past, Matt, what's your favorite prog band? It's down to Floyd, Yes, Crimson, Genesis. It's down to those 4. The thing about Yes is, though, as I just told you, those 3 albums, which are all 5-star classics, no filler to my ears on any of those records. I'm even including Cans and Brahms. It does not bother me. Crimson did not release 3 albums in a row that good. Floyd, yeah, okay. Dark Side, Wish You Were Here, Animals. Okay, yeah. Jethro Tull, 3 albums of that quality? I don't think so. And Genesis, depends upon how you feel about Lamb Lies Out on Broadway, doesn't it? I would say, if you're going to pick 3 albums of Genesis consecutively released in a row, studio albums, I'm going to go with take your pick. Foxtrot, Selling England by the Pound, and The Lamb. Or if The Lamb is too much for you, as it is for some folks, go with Nursery Crime, Foxtrot, and Selling England. Even so, those Yes albums are every bit the equal of those Genesis albums, if not better. All right, I've wasted too much time talking about that. Moving on to 1973, my favorite Rick Wakeman album, Six Wives of Henry VIII. Another, to my estimation, 5-star classic album, all instrumental, as proggy as prog can be, piano based, keyboard based. Rick wants to come up with 6 tracks, all based on the personalities, as such, of Henry VIII's wives. You got to be English to even think about that, that kind of thing. It's great, though. Some would say, arguably, better than Tales from Topographic Oceans. Okay, this is the Steven Wilson set. He hasn't done this one in Atmos yet, but I'm sure he will. This is, some would say, this is why it's divisive. Yes, going too far. It's a double album, 1 track on each side, so 4 songs, 4 sides. Basically what Soft Machine did with their 3rd album. I think this is wonderfully recorded. I think it's, wonderfully arranged. The playing is great. Bruford is gone. Bill Bruford left. Yeah, he left after Close to the Edge. Bill Bruford is my favorite progressive rock drummer. And I was going to include his solo stuff in this video, but I'm going to save it for King Crimson, for that video. So I can have more to say for Crimson. I got plenty of solo stuff for this video. Anyways, I don't mind this at all. Ignore Johnny Anderson's hippy-dippy lyrics about Eastern philosophy, whatever. Just get off on the music, put it on in the background, much the same way you might have like a jazz album on or some kind of ambient thing by Eno. It'll take you where you want to go. It's a nice kind of stony vibe. Don't think of these as songs so much as just, yes, experimenting, pushing progressive rock into new arenas, and you won't be so hard on it, I probably in my life have played, in fact, I'm not gonna lie, I played that Rick Wakeman album I just showed you more than I played this, because you have to be in the mood for this. But you know what though? I feel much the same way about Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, and that tells a story and it's got lyrics and this and that. But let's not jump ahead of ourselves. I'll also be doing a Genesis video at some point. I like the record. It's still Yes in their prime, Tales from Topographic Oceans. So I'm not one of those guys who pulls out my knife and starts carving away at this record. All right? Okay, so what? We're still at 73. Here, this is the first Peter Banks album that I ever heard. I think it's his first solo album. It's either called Peter Banks, as it says here, or Two Sides of Peter Banks, as I've heard it described many times. He does this album. You can tell I got a lot of these Japanese discs with the obies. He does this album with Jan Ackerman, you know, the guitar player for Focus. So you have two guitar players on here. I like it. It's, to me, one of my favorite prog albums from 73. I'm a prog guy. I can make lists of the top 20 or so of my favorite prog albums for almost any year in the 70s. I say almost any year because as the decade winds down, the late 70s, it becomes harder and harder to find 20 good prog albums. 10 would be a more reasonable number for, like, say, 78 and 79 for sure. And by the 80s, it drops off considerably. I like this record. It would probably make my top 10 for 73, but you know, I should have I will have shows like that one day. Just right now, I just started this YouTube channel, and I'm devoting one, episode each to like all the bands I think deserve it. Okay. Yes Songs. Triple album came out in 73. If you're a Yes fan, you love this stuff. But this is also kind of, I'm not going to say it's divisive among Yes fans. We love it. But if you don't like Prog, if you don't like Yes, then this is like, exhibit number 1, along with Topographic Oceans, as to why you don't like this genre or this band. It's taken over a tour or two, because Bruford is on some of this stuff too. 72, 73. There's a movie. The filmed performances do not exactly correspond with this, because I'll tell you, in fact, I'm going to talk about this at the same time I talk about this. All right. This is, what is this called? Progeny, 7 shows from 72. Maybe all of these shows for this album were in 72. Maybe none of them were from 73. I'd have to look it up. Anyways, these are the unadulterated, uncut, unedited shows. Same songs, I think, in the same sequence every night, but they're great. This is brilliant Yes in their prime. This is probably a better listen than just listening to Yes songs, but this is the one that we grew up with, right? So I'm gonna say this is probably out of print. I don't know what you're gonna pay for it on online, but if you're a big Yes fan, I'm sure you already got it. But I do recommend that. But the album Yes Songs was what they call Frankenstein, meaning that the producer took solos, sections from a song performed on one night and put it into another, the same song performed on another night. So the performances on this box, these 7 shows, right? Is that what I said? Yeah, are not going to exactly correspond with the versions that are on here, right? For the reasons I just told you. These versions have been Frankensteined. These are the unedited mixes. So, get them both if you're a big Yes guy, as so many of us are, which you probably wouldn't be watching this video if you weren't. Okay, so that was 73. Move on to 74. Rick Wakeman did Journey to the Center of the Earth. This was the first Rick Wakeman album I ever heard. Might as well show you both of these. I got 2 copies of this, both by Low Fidelity. This is the old silver disc. This is the gold disc. Neither one is in surround. Neither one is an SACD. Both of them sound good. It's another one of his, kind of, some might say, pretentious concept LPs, taking the Jules Verne novel and fleshing it out. This is, this was a whole show, I think. It's got people, narrating in different voices, and I like it. I mean, I understand if you're coming from like a metal or a punk rock viewpoint, this stuff would be horribly just elitist and whatever. But I mean, if you got into this stuff when you were younger, like I did, then you just accepted it. You know, it's like the 70s was like a era for fantasy and science fiction and just stuff of this nature. So, you know, I mean, I didn't have a hard time with this when I was younger. I don't have a hard time with it now. But I get it if you do. You know, we can't all be into the same things. What did I say that was, 74? This I'm going to show you. Patrick Moraz was in this band called Refugee. I like this. You could call this a solo album. By rights, I probably shouldn't be showing you this because Patrick Moraz was not in Yes yet. This was Refugee. I think I want to say this is their only album. It's good though. These other guys were guys in the Nice, you know, the proto Emerson, Lake and Palmer band that Keith Emerson was in, and Moraz, you know, was a Swedish keyboard player who replaced Rick Wakeman, who quit at that time temporarily because he didn't like Tales from Topographic Oceans. He thought that was pretentious. This is the guy, you know, making whole albums about Henry VIII's wives and Journey to the Center of the Earth. And wait till I get to the next album that I'm going to tell you about Rick Wakeman. I like it. You get, what was that guy's name? Lee Farndon, something like that. The singer for the Nice. His vocals just don't cut it for me. It's one of the main reasons why I like ELP more than the Nice. But I like the Nice's music perfectly fine. I like this record too. So that's why I'm showing it to you. I'm not going to show you any albums that I don't like today. So, all right, 74. We now move on to Relayer. This is another classic. It doesn't have any famous songs the way that the classic trilogy or trio or triptych of Yes did before this. But if I had to pick the greatest Yes album that wasn't the Yes album, Fragile and Close to the Edge, it's this one. It's this one. You know, something like Soon, that little part of the longer track, that should have been a hit single. Here is, again, the Steven Wilson mix, the surround sound mix. Got the great Roger Dean artwork. I should have mentioned him earlier. His LP covers are synonymous with Prog and Yes in particular. All right. Patrick Moraz only was on this one Yes album. After this, they didn't make an album for a while, but you know, I'm gonna keep telling you the story, so you're gonna follow me with that. So what are we at, 75 now? Here's the album I was trying to tell you about. So Rick, this is Arthur. What is it called exactly? I know it's not just Arthur. Oh well, the myths of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, whatever. 75, I like it as well, but he thought that Tales from Topographic Oceans was pretentious. What about this? He wanted to have this show on ice skates. You know, people on an ice, like a hockey rink doing this music. I mean, he really spent a lot of money on this. I like the record. It is, I probably don't like this quite as much as I like the two previous ones, but it's still good enough in my mind to show you. Now, Rick Wakeman, last time I looked on the internet, he had like something like literally 90-something solo albums. That's probably more than Yes and every member of Yes's solo career combined. You know, so to tell you that, you know, I only have a handful of Rick Wakeman albums is just, and I doubt I'll ever get that much more, but I do enjoy the ones I have, including the three that I've just shown you. So, you know, 75 was a Yes-less year. We didn't get a Yes album. Stuff like this tided us over, even though at this point, Rick was not in the band. Okay, I'm going to bring up this big unwieldy thing. Here's my first mention of Chris Squire, their outstanding bass player. They always crank the bass up loud in the mixes for these Yes albums. I like this one. Fish Out of Water. This is the Blu-ray set, you know, with the 5.1 mix. This is a good record. I've often thought, because his voice is kind of high, you know, I'm not as high as John's, but I've often thought that had Yes been on this album, it would have been a great Yes album for 1975. John could have sang these songs. This already has some of the members of Yes on here. I think Mraz is on here. But had Steve Howe done his magic over these tracks, John sang the songs, etc. You know, I want to say Alan White, but is Alan White already on here? Again, I should research this stuff. But part of the fun of me doing these shows for you guys is just to wing it. Just to see, you know, it's almost like I'm challenging myself just to see how much is retained in my memory. My memory is never good anyway. But anyway, so I like the record. It is the favorite of my solo Yes LPs for 1975. I'm leaving out Steve Howe's Beginnings because I'm going to show you another Steve Howe album, which I think is better later on. And, you know, there is a time constraint here. What are we at here? 26 minutes? Not bad. I guess we're not going to... This is not going to take as long as I thought. Okay, so moving on to, I guess we're on 76. Here is Patrick Moraz's first solo album. He's got a group of solo albums too. He's still in the band by this point. This is the story of I. It's a concept album. I like this too. I don't know what my favorite Yes solo LP is in 76 because that's another Yes-less year. I might as well give you guys these at the same time then. This is John Anderson's Olias or Olias, whatever, of Sun Hillow. This is another concept album that John worked a long time on. He does all the instruments. I'm trying to decide which of these two I like better. Maybe the John Anderson record. Neither one is a classic, but both of them are interesting. And again, they're albums to tide you over with until the next Yes album. All right, John he plays most of what's on here, I think. Patrick's keyboard wizardry, though, is, you know, he's just a notch under Rick Wakeman. He played with the Moody Blues in the 80s. So two pretty good records. Some regard this as a great album from 76. Okay, 77. This is the last Rick Wakeman album I'm going to show you. This is, what is it, Criminal Minded or something like that? Criminal Record. Also good. I don't know if this has any kind of reputation as being great. I had some people online turn me on to this. You gotta check this out, Matt. And I thought it was good. It makes me wonder how many other Rick Wakeman albums out there I would really enjoy. But yeah, this is, I mean, there's nothing on here that I dislike. And since it doesn't have a great reputation as being great, it's a nice little discovery if you got. Now he did other albums after Arthur, but before this. But this is the next one I have, and the last one that I'll show you. All right. In 77, here's the Steve Hoffman Audio Fidelity, Going for the One. This is another great album. All right. I virtually everything on here is the title track is classic. Yes, I used to hear that on the radio. Turn of the Century is great. Parallels is Wondrous Stories was a big hit in England. Not so much here, though. I really haven't heard it on the radio too much here. And Awaken is one of their big, long, proggy numbers. This is like a return to form, although I loved Relayer too. So I like Relayer better than this. But by this point, in 1977, a lot of the prog bands, the major prog bands of the 70s, are starting to, they've already peaked and they're starting to go, you know, like Gentle Giant did Missing Piece, which I think is a decent album, but I'll probably take any Gentle Giant album pre-Missing Piece over Missing Piece. ELP came back that year after a several years hiatus with the two Works albums. You know, good, somewhat good. I mean, when I'm playing them, I just think, okay, this is okay, but it could be better, you know. Genesis didn't do an album that year, but they did a great live album. Seconds album, one of my favorites. live prog albums. Rush, of course, were still brilliant with A Farewell to Kings, but they didn't. Their first album wasn't until '74. You know, a lot of bands who'd been around for a while. King Crimson was even making music in the second half of the '70s. They had started to peak and then decline. Yes, were virtually as good as they ever were. Again, it's another testament to why they can be considered the greatest prog band, or, you know, certainly one of them. Oh, by the way, Floyd and Jethro Tull knocked it out of the park that year with Animals and Songs from the Wood. Okay. Tormato. Now, Rick had come back for Going for the One. He's still on board with Tormato. This album is a disappointment. When you're playing it, you think, it's not bad. Rick's getting some weird keyboard sounds on this record, though, which don't exactly appeal to me. I mean, what's on here? Future Times, I Better Remember. Rejoice, Don't Kill the Whale. That was actually a single. Madrigal, yeah. Release, barely remember that one either. Yeah, you know, most of these songs aren't even ringing a bell. Because it's been a few years since I've played it. It's not bad. It's just, it's not great. I'll tell you, okay, so I was comparing other albums in '77 from other progressive rock bands. It's a better album than, say, Love Beach by Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Is it better than Genesis's And Then There Were Three? I don't know. I know that Genesis fans will like that album. That's when I'm starting to kind of get bored with Genesis. So, I don't know. I have to really play those albums back to back. And Then There Were Three and Tormato. Both of them are pretty good, but neither one blows me away. All right? So there we go. Okay. There was no Yes album in '79. Now, this is what I'm going to show you, the Steve Howe album. I like this one. This is a better album than Beginnings. He sings on Beginnings, for one thing, which it's nothing that you need to hear. This is a good little record. All right? This is another, this is another Japanese one. I mean, here's the Obi. He does different styles on here. You learn that he likes kind of country music, you know, and he's not just playing in a fashion that you would hear on a Yes album, but it's still progressive, you know, at a time when progressive rock was kind of losing its identity, you know, and it would really do that as it got into the '80s. I recommend this if you're going to get a Steve Howe album. He has a lot of albums too, though, and I'm not familiar with a whole lot of them. So of the ones I've heard, this is my fave. All right. Drama. We're in 1980. This is, folks, the best Yes album not to have John Anderson on vocals. They've merged with the Buggles here, but it doesn't matter. These are good songs. This is underrated. Machine Messiah is great. White Car does it really, yeah. In for the Lens, Run to the Light, Tempest Future is great, and then a lot of bonus tracks. It may not sound like Yes because John's not here, you know, of course Rick's not here either, but play it a bit, you know, within a day or two, you'll like it. Virtually the most underrated Yes album that I've shown you today. Okay, this is Yes Shows. This is another live album from 1980 containing stuff that went back years. There's stuff with Patrick Moraz on here. No one talks about this album, but it's good. Yeah, it's not Yes songs, but you know, this is still Yes, if not in their prime, still very proggy, still appealing to the same 70s audience. As always, this is 1980. If you haven't heard this, yeah, pick it up. Pick it up. This is, you don't need to pay what I pay for these Japanese discs, but just hear it online first. I mean, this is the age of streaming, and You can hear things for free. Okay, there was no Yes in 81 and 82. I don't think I even have anything to show you from 1981. But of course, Asia was a major rock album in 1982. I think I read once where this sold more than any other rock album. You got Steve Howe on here. I saw them live this year. For a band that was selling all these records, I saw them in a very small theater. You know, it certainly wasn't an arena, but radio was all over this. Heat of the Moment, Only Time Will Tell, Soul Survivor, Wildest Dreams. All of those were radio hits. No one seems to like this album. I like it. You know, it's not that dissimilar to what UK were doing a few years prior, but no, I'm not saying this is as good as UK. And just real quick, it's beyond the confines of this video, but this one isn't that bad either, but it's not as good as the first one. Okay, so that brings us to 1983. Here's the audio fidelity of 90125. This is another album that was all over the radio, even more so probably than the Asia album. Owner of a Lonely Heart is that classic single. Hold On is good. It Can Happen. Changes. Yeah, side one. This is a solid record. It's very commercial. It's pop prog in much the same way that Genesis were doing that year with their Genesis album. But I like this better than that Genesis album. It rocks harder, for one thing. Also, I think it's got a little more of a foot in 70s prog than the Genesis LP. So, I'm going to leave you at that. Wow, this really was not as long as I thought it was going to be. Really quickly, again, it's beyond the confines of this video. I told you guys I would show you guys a few more things. Here's the whole Keys to Ascension sets that came out in the late 90s. I like this too. This has this is 4 CDs and a DVD. It's a live show. There's live stuff and there's studio stuff. Who was on this one? Alan White, of course, was the drummer after Bill Bruford left. He's drummed on more Yes albums than any other drummer. Rick Wakeman, Chris Squire, Steve Howe, John Anderson. So you have the classic lineup again. You know, how can it go wrong? The Ladder was pretty good. I actually like this as an album better than I like the Keys to Ascension studio stuff. And what else I got here? I already showed you the one with the orchestra. Here's Symphonic Live. It came out, you know, after the Magnification. And then here's the songs from Songus 35th anniversary concert. Any filmed concert of a band I like that's in surround, I'll get it. All right, so yeah, I'm quite happy with how that turned out. Closing thoughts on Yes. Well, I already went over why I think that they could be the greatest progressive rock band. They did not make as many truly classic albums as Pink Floyd, but the thing about Floyd is there's always that idea that some people put forth that Floyd aren't really a prog band. I don't have that problem. To me, they were psychedelic, and then they were prog, where they pretty much remained for the rest of their, you know, prog. The sound of prog changed so much throughout the years, from the 70s to the 80s specifically, that to say that Floyd aren't prog are silly. But if you are going to take them out of that equation, then Yes's chances of being the top prog band go way up. Because it's the same thing with Jethro Tull. Prog is only one thing that Tull do, or did, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of English, or British, since Ian's Scottish, folk rock in there, whereas Yes were just a total prog band for the longest time. And the closest you could compare to Yes in terms of quality and duration would be Genesis. But Genesis went pop a long time ago and never really returned, with some proggy elements throughout the 80s. And then Crimson, who are totally a prog band, but never had a hit, you know. So it's really difficult for me to say who the greatest prog band is, but it could be, yes. All right, Matt Wilson signing off. Hopefully I'll see you guys Saturday for my next videos.